Hello everyone, and welcome. It's been almost a year now since I did my first two videos on Tenkaichi discussing the first two fights of round 1, and in that time, we've gotten two more completed fights. The first of which, I think, basically the entire fandom agrees, was the worst one by far, and I agree. William Adams versus Yagyu Munenori is definitely the worst fight we've gotten thus far. However, that is not to say that it is a bad fight. Not necessarily that it's a good one either. I think it's just fine. It's okay, I guess, for what it is. So today, I'm going to be explaining the ups and downs of the third match of Tenkaichi. But before I get into that, as always, if you haven't already, definitely sure to like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss any future Tenkaichi uploads. I'd like to try and hit at least 100 likes on this week's video. And the next big goal for the channel is hitting 10,000 subscribers, so if you haven't already, definitely be sure to help us reach that. But without any further ado, let's get right into today's video. I think we should start off with the bad, because the bad is what everyone's most familiar with. It's the first thing that comes to mind when they think of this fight, which is never a good sign. And I think the biggest source of that grief is one of the fighters himself, William Adams. There are a lot of reasons that people really hate this version of William Adams. I would say the biggest one is that he's not a character, or rather, his entire character is being a rapist. That's all he ever really talks about. That seems to be his primary motivation, is wanting to rape things. He wants to fuck everything in Japan so he can procreate with it. He has a breeding kink. He's a rapist. He does not believe in consent to sexual intercourse. So, quite morally reprehensible. He's a savage, and not in the, oh my god, that's so savage. No, I mean, like, God, what a fucking heathen savage. An uncivilized brute, in the most negative terms humanly possible. I'd say he is arguably the most morally reprehensible person in the series thus far, his only competition probably being Oda Nobunaga and the guy he's fighting, which we'll get into soon. So he's not really a character, which sucks, because even some of the less interesting characters, like, I don't know, it really depends on your personal choice, probably either Musashi or Honda, they're still characters. They still have some degrees of nuance to them. They still have something beyond just being fucking insane and being a shitty person. Notably, they're not really that shitty of people. I guess Fuma's a shitty person, and Toda kinda is. But both of them actually have some depth to their characters. They have actual fleshed out backstories, as opposed to William, who just has a short flashback of his mom giving him a knife. Speaking of the knife, I think the other part of William Adams that people don't really like is that he's weak as fuck. He's the weakest fighter thus far. His special ability is just a funny dance that he does. The Dirk dance is literally just a footwork technique, and then, like, blade locking, I guess. And it seems to also rely very heavily upon being on a boat and having a home field advantage. He sucks. He's not good at all. And then we get into the other part. The other fighter, Yagyu Munenori. A lot of people feel that Yagyu may have plot armor, or that he's getting wanked by the authors, because, in case you don't know, Yagyu Munenori is like the third most famous Japanese swordsman ever. I know he's not very far behind Miyamoto Musashi and Sasaki Kojiro. I don't know if he's more or less famous than Kamizumi, but, he's up there. Top 5 Japanese swordsmen ever. And he's also been getting a lot of plot relevance throughout the series since the first chapter, so he kind of seems like a main character, and a lot of people don't like when a main character gets preference in one of these tournament mangas, because then it just kind of takes out the interest, the suspense. You just assume they're going to win, and you lose interest in the fight. And the fact that Yagyu absolutely fucking curb-stomped William is, not doing very much to disprove that belief. There's also the belief that we get from other series such as Record of Ragnarok that, the authors have a bias towards Japanese characters. Because again, Yagyu's a very famous Japanese swordsman. William Adams is a Westerner. He's an Englishman. And, he's a vile, disgusting foreigner who wants to come and rape and pillage Japan. He must be fended off by the noble samurai, which is actually kind of how they open the fight. So, they're kind of leaning into it really hard. Here's where we start to get into why I don't have as much of an issue with the fight, but this one kind of conflicts a bit. Because depending on which one it is, I think the authors are not being truthful, or they do have a bias. So, for the sake of narrative and keeping things refreshing, I don't mind having a low diff fight. I think a lot of people seem to associate low diffs with being bad. I don't. I think it would get kind of old if every single fight was an extreme diff right down to the wire. Having low diffs every once in a while kinda, mixes things up a little bit. It also helps to ensure that things don't go on for a really long time when they don't have to. It also means you're never really sure how a fight's gonna go. You don't know a fight's always gonna go on for 6 or 7 chapters. Someone could get cut down in a mere 3 chapters. Who knows, maybe we'll get someone get like one shot in 1 chapter at some point in the future. I'm sure everyone would be thrilled about that. But it is a possibility, I suppose. And the other thing is, I don't have an issue with this, because it really establishes Yagyu more as sort of a villainous character, and I think William being weak is fine thematically, because his motivations don't align with any of the other characters. Everyone else in their own sort of way wants to be the strongest, and that's why they're here. But William just kind of wants to fuck things. So, in terms of motivation, it makes sense that he's weaker than everyone, and is easily dispatched by Yagyu. But here's where the issues come in. Either the authors decided, regardless of who he was going to fight, that William Adams was going to be one of the weakest fighters. One of the only 2 non-Japanese fighters was going to be one of the weakest. He was going to be total garbage, assuming that they then give random matchups. And then, I don't know, whether or not they decided to make it a low diff kind of goes against what they say, where the winner isn't decided until they get to the second to last chapter of the fight. Well, the second to last chapter of the fight was the second chapter. They knew very early on that it was going to end very quickly. So, I don't know how much goes into that creative process there. The other thing is, if having William lose very easily, having him get dispatched without much difficulty, is supposed to be a thematic thing, that goes against the idea that there's no main characters, there's no real intrinsic theme to the story, just whoever's the strongest wins. That suggests that that's not true, which is not great, because that's a neat concept, and, well, you shouldn't go against that. So either they're being dishonest, or this is just very unfortunate? I don't know. However, things aren't all bad with this fight. For starters, very easily, the art is quite good. We got a lot of very, very good spreads and panels during this fight. The art is pretty much as good as it can be. The choreography is alright. The Dirk dance is kind of weak, but I'd say the choreography during this fight was fairly neat. The boat made for an interesting setting for a fight. The rocking of the waves definitely adds an interesting environmental factor into it. Yagyu, at least, is interesting, and I think the strong point to this fight is it is not, oh, the proud noble samurai fends off the mindless savage foreigner, because Yagyu is arguably worse than William. Per William's own admission, he's a bigger monster than I am. He is an insane person who feeds off of pain and death. His sword technique is centered around torturing his opponent, keeping them conscious so he can continue to inflict pain upon them. He is not remotely a good person, and that is basically everyone's takeaway, is that Yagyu Munenori is an actual sword demon. Okay, there's not really anything admirable about the guy, except that he's really strong, I guess. He's still awful. So, if anything, this fight established that we're definitely going to be rooting for whoever ends up going up against him in the future, who we're going to talk about more in the next video, because the next one's going to be talking about match 4, naturally. I'm kind of waiting until we get the next volume cover, so when I get some of the colorings done for that, if I can, we're going to be using some of the official colors for the stuff that'll presumably be revealed in that volume cover, which only comes out in a few days. All in all, the fight is fine. It's not particularly bad, it's not particularly good. You have a strong guy fight a weak guy. They're both shitty people. The weak bad guy gets absolutely obliterated, and the strong bad guy is established as a genuine threat to all of the other fighters and a very strong contender for getting to the finals of the tournament. So, you know, it's whatever. I'd give it like a 5 out of 10, right in the middle. Not particularly good, not particularly bad. If it were any worse, I would say it is straight up a bad fight. If it were any better, I'd say it's decent. It's okay. Wow, I kind of say it's okay already. I guess right now it would just be fine, and then if it was even remotely better, if William had anything more resembling a character so the audience actually feels something other than relief when he dies, it would be significantly better. I think you would see it getting at least a somewhat positive reception amongst most people, whereas most people just kind of disparage it as literally the worst thing ever. But what do you guys think? Do you hate this fight? Are you just ambivalent towards it like I generally am? Or you actually kind of like it in a sick, twisted way? Be sure to let me know down in the comments. But with that, that's all for today's video. If you enjoyed, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss any future Tenkaichi uploads. I do Tenkaichi chapter reactions every month, and I plan on doing another discussion video about Hino Choko versus Kamizumi Nobutsuna. That'll be out sometime in the next few weeks, so be sure to keep your eyes out for that. And if you enjoy discussing Tenkaichi with other people, or you just enjoy the content I produce on this channel, I highly suggest you check out my Discord server. I have a link to that down in the description. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys around. Take care.